you want to find yourself a really good glue. I find E6000 to be an awesome glue for this. It's what I started off using, and it will work really well for what we're doing today. You're also going to want a few pieces of thread. A good nylon thread is really strong. It's not going to break when you put pressure on it. So you want that. Also find yourself a really good pair of scissors. You want to make sure your scissors are very sharp, otherwise it's just going to pull your hair and ruin everything. You want something to kind of hold your hair steady, so I like to use a clamp. It will just stop the hairs from pulling out as you put pressure on it as well. You're also going to want to find yourself something to tie the braid to when we start. I like to use the back of a chair, it works really well, or have somebody hold it. And last but not least, you need some horsehair. And of course, your horseshoe pendant or your horsehair ring. All available at verstara.com. So when we get started with the hair, what you're going to do first is you're going to wash it. Just use a mild dish soap even, works really well. And then you're going to want to count out hairs. I find for most hair, a good 80 hairs will be perfect for the size of the channel in these pieces. So if you can go ahead and count out 80 hairs, then we can get started. So once you've got your hair all counted out, we are going to take your first string and you're just going to tie it around the end here. However that looks like to you. For me, I like to use a little slip knot, makes it a little bit easier. So you're going to tie it, make sure it's nice and secure. And then, there we go. Yeah, I like to do a couple little wraps around just to make sure it's really strong, because there's nothing worse than getting halfway done, and all of a sudden your knot pulls off. All right. Okay, so we're going to take these two ends. You want to make sure these two ends stay long enough so you can tie them to your fixed object, whether that is your friend's hand or the back of a chair or whatever it is you want to use. You're going to take your clamp and just clamp that hair right there to stop any extra pieces from pulling out. And now we're ready to braid. So before you get started, just make sure that you have your second string ready so that once your braid is complete, you can quickly tie the ends and not have to try to fumble around holding an end and cutting string and getting it all ready. Just be prepared. So have your string ready and off we go. So I like to separate the hair into two separate pieces. Try to make sure they are as even as possible. Oh no, my background's moving. All right. And then you're going to take a few strands from this side and cross it over to join the other side. Take a few strands from this side, cross it over to join that side. And you're going to do that the whole way down. So what we're doing is from the top here, I hope you can see that, we're going to take a few strands, cross it to join the other side. A few strands from the top, cross it to join the other side. And we are going to do that the whole way down. Now, as a disclaimer, I have been doing this for 9 years now. So if it does not come this easy to you, don't panic, don't give up, don't throw it. It takes some practice, takes some time. It's not going to be perfect the first time you do it. You might have to do this a few times before you get something you're happy with. And you want to put a decent amount of pressure on it. If you hold it too loosely, you're going to end up with hairs that poke out. You're going to end up with kind of bubbles. So you just want to keep a nice steady pressure on it. Okay. And then every once in a while, I like to run my hands down the hair. That's what I'm doing there. Because it gets tangled at the bottom. It kind of starts braiding itself down there. So we will do this, and however long that takes is however long that takes. So once you're all done your braid, you're gonna want to tie it at the end. So I do suggest making your braid as long as possible when you're first starting out. It's just gonna make it easier for you to work with in the long run. Once you get better at it and you're a little bit more confident on how to put these together, you can start working with shorter hair. But for now, let's just do some nice long hair, nice long braids. That way, if we mess something up, then we can, sorry, this is difficult on your own. Yeah, so if something gets messed up, then you can always have a little bit extra to work with instead of having to start all over. Now, if you have an extra set of hands to have somebody help you tie, that would be very handy because if you loosen up, the hair is gonna loosen. So keep it as tight as possible and tie it. All right, ready for the next step. So one thing we wanna do before we go and take everything apart is you're gonna take your glue, and I like to use a toothpick because this makes it a little bit easier. So we're gonna put a little bit of glue on our toothpick. And we're gonna put a little bit here at the end because this is gonna be the spot where we will cut it to fit into our ring or the horseshoe pendant. Now you only wanna do one side because if it's on the other side, it's gonna look awful. Okay, and then we will do the other side once we're ready to measure. Okay, so we're gonna cut our braid free here. And take this guy off. Okay, so what you're gonna do is you're gonna take your ring or your horseshoe pendant, whichever one you're using. We're gonna take our ring, and we're just gonna set this hair. We're gonna get an idea of where we need to put the glue for the end. So this is the end, this is the end that the hair is gonna go into. So you're gonna take your glued end, and you're gonna kind of put it just over top of there. You're gonna slowly go all the way around. And we're gonna say that right here to here is where we're gonna want our next little bit of glue. So get all multitasky, use all your hands. And we're gonna squeeze a little bit of glue out. Now carefully, without touching the metal, we're gonna put the glue on. Give it a good like 1/2 inch space so that if it's not in the exact right spot, that's okay. Okay, so it's on. You're all ready to just let it dry. Now you want to wait. I like to give it a good 12 hours. Wait as long as you want. The longer you wait, the easier it's gonna be when you're ready to do it. All right, so we've let everything dry. We're gonna take our braid and our super sharp scissors, and we're just gonna snip that top part where we glued to start with. Just nice and straight. Perfect. So as you can see, it's kind of starting to come apart just a little bit. That's okay. If it starts to really pull apart, you're gonna wanna stop, re-glue it, make sure it's a really good glue spot, and then start all over. So we're just gonna, here we go. Slide this in here. So give it pokes out the bottom part just a little bit. So you're gonna slide all the way around. Really push it down into that channel there. And then this is the scary part. This is where we're gonna start to cut. So you wanna pull just a little bit so this goes, hope you can see that there, inside. See how it's sneaking up in there? So you want it about halfway. You're gonna have to eyeball it. You're gonna want it halfway in that little channel right in there. So once you're pretty confident it's halfway, you're gonna push this part up. And there is no science to this. This is all trial and error. You can do this. So what you're gonna do is once you're right here, you're gonna cut it. This is the scary part. I like to cut and leave a little bit more than I think I'm gonna need so that, you know, it's better than cutting too much and starting all over. So this is gonna be a little too much, but what I want you to do is just tuck it in there, okay? Tuck it in. It almost looks done, but not quite. So now that it's all tucked in, just kind of go through and push all the hair down. So as you can see, I have too much in here because it's kind of poofing up. I don't know if you can see that. So what we're gonna do is you want something nice and sharp. I like to use a little pin. And we're just gonna pull this out. And we're gonna cut off just a teeny tiny bit more. Just a little bit. I don't know if you can hear my kids yakking away in the background there. Okay, now we're gonna tuck that back under. Okay, get that all tucked in there. If you have, see, I don't know if you can see that, I have this little hair that doesn't wanna go in. Toothpicks, they are handy. Just shove that little guy in there. Go to your home. Okay, so we push it all down. It's all, oh, it's still a little too big. Eyeballing thing can be difficult. So this part is going to be your most time consuming and the most stressful part. Okay, so once you've got the perfect fit, you're going to take your piece out, you're going to take your glue, and you're going to glue along the whole bottom of this. You don't want to let this dry. Once you're glued, you're going to, mine came unraveled a little bit. It will happen. You can start over if you like or not. For the purpose of this video, I'm not. So you just slide it in. So your glue will get in there, and you want to make sure you don't use too much because it'll get really messy. And then you're going to slide this in. You're going to slide this in. All right, and then you're going to kind of just squish it all down. Make sure it's all nice and solid in there. And you're going to let it dry. And when it's all done drying, you will have your very own horsehair ring that you have made yourself. Congratulations. Wasn't that fun?